Hey there! Welcome to Tiger Drop Films. Today, I got a nice and easy video, so sit back, relax, grab something to drink, maybe put a little bit of whiskey in it, and let's get into it. So before I get into the ranking, it's going to be in two parts. First, I'm going to rank about 12 of my favorite Godzilla films, just 12 to 1, easy and done. And then I'm going to rank 6 Ultraman films. The reason being is that yes, there are a bunch of Ultraman films as well, but since I've seen way more Ultraman TV shows than I have Ultraman films, and most of the films are tied to TV shows of Ultraman, it would get pretty hard to rank, and I would be here all day. So that's why I'm only going to do 6 of my favorite Ultraman films, and 12 Godzilla films. And for another little bit of housekeeping, I do think that when it comes to Godzilla, especially since he's had more presence in the West than Ultraman, thankfully Ultraman is getting more exposure, I do want to say that I think Godzilla deserves a bit more credit for allowing more people, especially at a young age, to get into more foreign films, if you know what I mean. Godzilla being a Japanese character, sure, a lot of his films for the first about 40 years of his career were English dubbed and edited, and all kinds of changes, but regardless, it is pretty awesome that Godzilla was just that guy, that first foreign character to allow people to see films from other countries. And sure, even if they weren't edited, there were still films that, well, came from outside the US. So I do think that Godzilla as a character, as an icon, as a series, I think it deserves more praise for that. And sure, -1 getting an Oscar at the beginning of this year, and getting a re-release in a few weeks at November in the US, that's awesome. So I'm happy Godzilla's still kicking ass. Without further ado, let's get into my top 12 Big G films. If only copyright wasn't a bitch and I could show footage. But anyway, at the number 12 spot is Shin Godzilla. What can I say? Seeing that film in theaters blew my brain. And I can't believe it's been like 8 years since Shin Godzilla came out. And in another 8 years, I'll be saying, wow, it's been 16 years since Shin Godzilla came out. I'm getting old. And Godzilla, he's still a stallion. He's still aging well. Well, maybe not in Shin Godzilla since he looks a bit ugly, but I do love Shin Godzilla. I can't believe it spawned its own little sub-series of tokusatsu films. That's insane. And with Shin Godzilla, I love the story, I love its themes, and having a mix of old and new music is incredible. Years ago when I heard that Terror of Mechagodzilla theme play on the big screen, my mouth dropped like a Looney Tunes character, and I was blown away by the score, the cinematography, the special effects. And years later, I gotta say, of Shin Godzilla, I now love Third Act way better than I did back then. After more subsequent viewings over the years, the third act has gotten much better. I've appreciated it more. Yes, it's downtime, but you get to know the characters, get to know Rando, Anne, and the Prime Minister, all the whole gigantic cast of characters, much more. It's very subtle, but I like it, and who doesn't love a good old story of people coming together in multiple countries to take on a big threat? And Shin Godzilla delivers on that. I mean, for crying out loud, the climax is a classic Ifukube military march theme, that being the one from Battle in Outer Space, which that is insane. Being used as they battle Godzilla, and Godzilla finally gets, he gets more loose, and he starts cursing like he did, like the way we know Godzilla, he's stomping around more movement, he's cursing, and he's using his stomach breath a lot. It's good stuff. I love the special effects, the classic Toho sound effects, and I love the ensemble cast of characters. And that's why I have Shin Godzilla at my number 12 spot. At number 11, the original Godzilla. I mean, I love this film. And I'm sure you've heard everyone on YouTube already talk ad nauseum about this film, even random YouTubers talking about, nuclear metaphors and this and that. And yeah, that is what the film is about. I gotta say this, if you're gonna compare 54 to all the other solo Godzilla films, yes, 54 is about the atomic bomb, of course, but don't forget this. Don't forget Serizawa's sacrifice. It's very poignant, it's very melancholy and bittersweet. And for me, I think 54 is more than just about a metaphor for atomic weapons. It's also about sacrifice. And you see that with Serizawa. It's about, yes, these horrible things happen with the atomic bombs in World War II, but also, if we look in the future, who knows what terrible things are going to make. And I think the whole emotional core of the film is Serizawa after Amiko breaks her promise, and with Ogata, by telling Ogata about Serizawa's oxygen destroyer, get the confrontation, and you get that heartbreaking prayer for peace scene that is able to appeal to Serizawa's heart, his humanity, and therefore he makes a choice to use the weapon against Godzilla. And I think 54 doesn't get enough credit for just how the film still makes you feel for Godzilla himself. You know, at the end, you're mourning for Serizawa and Godzilla himself, and there's this look in Serizawa's eyes where you can tell, you know, even if he burned the notes and still had it in his brain, part of him wanted to live no matter what. But part of him knew that Amiko, the woman he loves, was already with Ogata, and she's going to have a happy, normal life. I think that is what made Serizawa ultimately decide to, you know, take the plunge and finish himself off with Godzilla. That's why he tells him to be happy in the end. So that is what I think is at the heart of 54, alongside all of the amazing craftsmanship that went into it. So that's why it's at 11th spot. It's an amazing film, it started it all, but there's a lot of Godzilla films I just love a lot, that I do think are as high quality as 54 and all the other films, that I think really deserve the spot. So at the number 10 spot, I have Son of Godzilla. Son of Godzilla is a film that, for me, is as emotional as 54. It really tugs at the heartstrings. We get to see a new side to Godzilla himself. And as an older brother myself, the dynamic between Godzilla and Manila is just so heartwarming. As much as it is relatable, you know, having to look after a younger kid and, you know, getting annoyed by them, getting agitated, but ultimately coming through for them in the end. And yeah, I've had to step on some pretty nasty spatters myself in my life, and that kind of ties to the finale of Manila and Godzilla teaming up against Humunga. It's intense, it's dramatic, and I also love the human cast of this film. We get our first appearance of Goro Maki, that kind of character concept, and the overall idea of yet another weapon humanity made, that being the weathered balloon device causing more monsters, and the beautiful cinematography of this film, the relaxing jungle vibe that is still terrifying as they're stranded, and the whole amazing score, the monster designs, and the way the film wraps up with Godzilla deciding to step back and hold Manila in the ice. Oh, it's just such a heartwarming film, and that's why I love Son of Godzilla. At number 9, I'm going to have Godzilla vs. Gigan. I highly recommend checking out my friend and I's podcast, that being G-Force, a kaiju podcast. We have an episode of Godzilla vs. Gigan. I'm on it, but they have so many episodes without me that are incredible, because my friends, Nick, Andrew, and everyone, they are amazing at their breakdowns of all things tokusatsu. So I highly recommend G-Force, a kaiju podcast. I love you guys. So, Godzilla vs. Gigan, a film from the 70s that I adore. All versions of it, English or Japanese, all the cuts. I love this film. I love just the effects. Sure, the stock footage, but that doesn't bother me. I mean it. In this film, a great human cast of characters of Gingo, the Cord hippie, his karate girlfriend, the Space Hunter Nebulans, the whole 70s relaxing vibe, and the manga aesthetic, and the way that Gingo's drawings come into saving the day in the finale. I love it. And Godzilla vs. Gigan is just one of those films that has a long battle, but it pays off, because this is Haru Nakajima's last performance as Godzilla. And I think what better way to tie off his performance by having him team up with the first monster that Nakajima and Godzilla fought, that being Anguirus, fighting their old-time foe, King Ghidorah, and the new foe, Gigan. It's a bloody fight. But the whole finale where Godzilla, or Haru Nakajima, gets back up and he has a whole Rocky Balboa moment where the score just crescendos and he takes on Gigan and King Ghidorah with Anguirus by his side. And when the cast, they look at Godzilla, and they exclaim, Godzilla's on his feet again, and the music swells, and the whole fight is amazing. And in true tokusatsu fashion, Ila Ardora did it, already by making Godzilla a full-on superhero, but Gigan does it further by giving Godzilla his own character theme song. I'm not talking about the Ifukube kind, but like an actual lyrics, because Kunio Miyachi from the Ultraman series, he did the tie-in songs for Godzilla in this, and it is incredible. Go listen to it. Those songs are incredible. At the number 8 spot, I'm gonna have Tokyo SOS. Now this is one of the Godzilla films that I grew up on that I also got to see in theaters back in 2023, so it has a soft spot. It already had a soft spot for me, but being able to see that film in theaters, even more of a soft spot to my old Grinch heart. I love Tokyo SOS. It may not be a perfect follow-up to Against Mechagodzilla, but I still think it's a great film, and I mean that. I feel like Tokyo SOS is a true, in a way, a celebration of all things Godzilla in his first 50 years. And then I think Final Wars is kind of the after party to Tokyo SOS, so that makes sense. Tokyo SOS is a bit more, takes itself a bit more seriously with dignity in the sense of, having the send-off to Godzilla as in a way, we finally got Godzilla against the original Godzilla, after against Mechagodzilla, of course, and Final Wars is the big after party with everyone involved, it's a good old time. And then I think of Tokyo SOS, it's just Godzilla, Mechagodzilla, Mothra, with a nice cameo by Kamibus. And of course you get the Shobijin, the fairies, helping Mothra. We get Godzilla against twin Mothra larvae once again. And we get a great final fight with Mechagodzilla at the Tokyo Diet Building. What a great setting for the final duel. I've already talked about SOS on this channel, and if you look at my Yakuza video about locations from the Godzilla films seen in Yakuza through virtual tourism, in that video I talk about the SOS final fight even more. I love SOS. Oshima's score is incredible. I like that the Chujo family is brought back from the original Mothra in here. I do think there are ways SOS could have been even better, but that whole early 2000s aesthetic, the bombastic score, how badass the fights are in this film, and I really like the human cast as well. It's a bit more low-key with the human side, but I really like Tokyo SOS. That's why it's at the number 8 spot. And at the number 7 spot, I'm gonna have to put The Return of Godzilla. You probably can't see it. I have a poster for Return of Godzilla right there. I love Return of Godzilla. And I can't believe they finally brought it to HBO Max. Amazing. I love Return. I love the characters. Once again, Goramaki returns, a new version of him. It's funny, all 3 films that character is in is on my top 12, but the sweeping score, it's ominous, dramatic, and it's a bit of a true 80s flair, with a great love track for Godzilla that plays at the end. And then the main actress for this film, she was a singer at the time, one of her themes plays on the yacht when Goramaki's at sea in the beginning. Great stuff. This film, the Super X theme, Godzilla's new theme, the ending score when he's falling in the volcano, or the theme when he gets back on his feet when the nuclear weather causes lightning to hit him. This film is incredible. I love the themes of the Cold War as the backdrop. Now we finally got a film where we have skyscrapers that dwarf Godzilla. Sure, he may be bigger, but the scale of this film and having the human characters on a skyscraper above him looking down, then all the chaos happens. For me as a kid watching this film had a lot of intense human scenes, from the opening of the Chakras to the final battle of Super X. I love the shot where Godzilla finally wakes up, and while this film doesn't have a rampage as intense as 54, instead we get more of a lumbering, silent Godzilla. And when he gets revived, he gets pissed, and that's when all the fire starts, all the explosions. Godzilla starts tearing down this new 80s Tokyo. I love the shot where Super X is on the ground. He finally beat it, and Godzilla takes a look at it. And instead of shooting with his atomic breath, He sees a skyscraper and he knocks over the skyscraper on the Super X. What a great finisher. You can tell he had a lot of attitude. I love it. And then we get the tragic ending where Professor Hayashida has to lure Godzilla to the volcano, Mount Mihara. It's sad. And once again, Godzilla's violent. And he has a sort of a inquiry side to him. But in this film, you still feel bad for him. You feel empathy and sympathy. And that's why I think Return of Godzilla will have to be my favorite solo Godzilla outing. Even above 54 a bit, just personal preference. That's my preference, but I love Return of Godzilla. And one of my dearest friends that I miss every day, Evan Baker. Godzilla 1985 was his first Godzilla film, and on the podcast we'd always talk about his admiration for 85. And that's why at the beginning of this video I had to talk about why I think it's important to acknowledge that yes, it's good that a lot of the Japanese cuts of Godzilla films are finally making their way into the West the past 6 years, but I think it's important to acknowledge that Godzilla has always been a character that, even through his English or American cuts of his films, he's always drawn in the audience. He's always made a cultural impact. And that's why I was thinking about how with Evan, 85 was how he got into Godzilla. And it was like that for a lot of people, even older Godzilla films like the 56 cut with King of the Monsters, or the American cut of King Kong vs. Godzilla, or Godzilla vs. The Thing, or Godzilla vs. Monster Zero. All these American cuts are still important in the history of Godzilla. And sure, they may be, translated to be a bit different, and they have English dubs, or they cut things out. Well, in the perfect world, it would have been awesome to always have, the full-on cuts available to everyone. It's still important that these films brought Godzilla into the international space. I think whether it's Godzilla 1985 or Return to Godzilla, two versions of the same film are very important and pivotal moments in the history of Godzilla. So with all this in mind, I have to put Return to Godzilla, my favorite solo Godzilla film, at the number 7 spot. And at the number 6 spot, we have another film that's close to my heart, that being Godzilla 2000. And they kind of segue from Return to 2000. 2000 is the last Godzilla film to have a full-on English cut. And I don't mean just an English dub, I mean a full-on English cut. They even changed some of the music, and it's a bit tighter paced. I remember on the podcast, my friend Elfie, she would really go into how the Japanese cut was more superior than the English cut. And it was a really fun discussion, talking about different cuts of film and our experiences with it. And with that in mind, I really love Godzilla 2000. For me, it's such a perfect Godzilla film. You get to understand his character, much like 84 and 54 did, in terms of starting a new era. And in 2000, we got a great little family story with Shinoda and his daughter Io as they're doing the whole Godzilla tracking crew. It's such a charming, heartwarming story. It has such a homey feel to it. This is the beginning of the early 2000 aesthetic as we leave the 90s, when things start becoming a bit more digital, more CGI, but there's still such a graininess to the picture that is so relaxing. And then we get Godzilla against Katagiri, such a great dynamic, and Godzilla against the Millenniums and Orga. I love Orga. I would always play as him, and Godzilla Save the Earth. He's amazing. I have a great memory getting the Orga figure at, I think, G-Fest 2010, I think. God, that was a long time ago. But I love Godzilla 2000. The music, the amazing score. Like, if you look up I think it's called Dreaded God, that theme, amazing. I think the composer, I believe his name was Hattori. That theme he made for Godzilla, incredible. I'm so glad he came back for the animated trilogy, but his theme for Godzilla is amazing. He knows how to make a new Godzilla theme while making it stand on its own. I love the 2000 design, the green skin, the purple dorsal plates, the orange atomic breath, amazing. That whole finale where Godzilla rises from the bay and he starts to march towards the Millennium UFO. Perfection. Amazing final fight, amazing entire film, a great new start for Godzilla. Maybe a one-off, but it sticks in your head. And for me, this is one of the most inspirational Godzilla films of all time. If you haven't seen it, go check it out. Simple as that. And now we're going to get into my top 5 Godzilla films. At the number 5 spot, at the number 5 spot, I'm going to have to put, oh yeah, okay. I know what I'm going to put. At the number 5 spot, King Kong vs. Godzilla. This is one that I got to revisit more as I got older, because you know I grew up on the American cut and I got to see the Japanese cut that the Criterion Collection as a bonus feature stuck in the Japanese cut. Not the best quality, but still I got to see it. Whether it's the American cut or the Japanese cut, I love King Kong vs. Godzilla. You do for a fact get more nuance with the comedy, a bit of the satire, the true themes of the film. With the Japanese cut is truly seen by director Ishiro Honda and writer Shinichi Sakazawa. I love Sakazawa's Godzilla screenplays. They're always so much fun. I wish the franchise had more of his taste, like with the modern era, whether it's Japanese or the Monsterverse. I hope they add more of that Sakazawa style into it. I think that's a lot of fun, the way he's able to combine the terror of the monsters and the fun aspects of everyday life. And we get that with King Kong vs. Godzilla, another film that pioneered Godzilla himself. If you flash forward to the New Empire, we got to see Godzilla rise on an iceberg like he does in this film. How is that? Amazing. This film, I love King Kong to death, and I love Godzilla to death, so seeing them fight is amazing. The score of this film, if it could be score, be repurposed for films such as Godzilla vs. King Ghidorah, and so on and so forth. Amazing soundtrack here, amazing 2 fights. I mean, in this film, you get to see Godzilla and King Kong both attack a train separately. Like, that's perfect. And I have a whole video on this film if you look at my Purpose of King Kong Godzilla video. So if you want to see more of my thoughts on their legacy, check that one out. But that's my number 5 spot. Alright, number 4, Godzilla against Mechagodzilla. Another one I got to see in theaters. I believe for this one they even played the 2021 Godzilla vs. Ghidorah short film. Good stuff. I took my brother to see this one. I love Godzilla against Mechagodzilla. For me, it's perfection. The character of Akane is great. I love her relationship and dynamic with the father and daughter duo. I think Akane's character is just so solid. She's engaging, and then we have the whole JSDF, all the side characters are a lot of fun. The prime ministers in this film are awesome. We get nice callbacks to the Gargantuans and Mothra. What I love about the 2 Kiryu films, the duology directed by Tezuka, is this. Around the same time we got Ultraman finally going back to the Showa era, and I'm glad Godzilla, perhaps coincidentally, did it as well with these 2 films. And for me, there may be a weird offshoot elsewards to the Showa era, but I'm all for it. We get some other non-Godzilla Toho films highlighted here. We get another one highlighted in SOS, as I mentioned Prometheus earlier with Space Amoeba. For me, that's so much fun, just exploring the Showa world in the early 2000s. And I love Against Mechagodzilla. The Kiryu design of Mechagodzilla is perfection. Every time I see his figure in the store, I'm tempted to buy it, even though I know I don't need it because I already have so many. But I gotta. The Godzilla design is filmed with his dorsal plates, his atomic breath, and his expressions are incredible. I like to think that this Godzilla is the son of the original 54. That's how I kind of see it in this timeline. I love what they did with Mechagodzilla. You know me, Mechagodzilla is my favorite Godzilla villain. Even when he's a hero, he's still my favorite. I have a whole video on Mechagodzilla. Check it out right here, the Ultimate Godzilla Foe. Because I do think Mechagodzilla has the best track record against Godzilla. If anyone's going to beat him, I'm okay with it beating Mechagodzilla, even if it's a standstill. I love the plot. Like I said, Oshima's score is incredible. The cinematography of this film is ethereal. I love the early 2000s aesthetic. As we talked about on the podcast, this film is kind of an upgraded version of versus Megaguirus, and I'm all for that. I love Godzilla against Mechagodzilla. Enough said. The number 3 spot, we got GMK, the longest title in existence, but GMK. I love the supernatural and ghosty aesthetic, or should I say the backdrop of this film. We got Kaneko coming to direct his first Godzilla film, and it's in all spades. I love GMK. I love the cast, the whole reporter doing the classic, reporter, journalist going to investigate a ghostly story in the form of Godzilla with his pot belly, his beer belly, kicking ass, fighting the 3 guardian monsters. I love it. I love Baragon in this film. This might be my favorite Mothra design, if it wasn't for Tokyo SOS's design, which is amazing. And I think this is my favorite King Ghidorah. And that is further cemented by this King Ghidorah design, at least suit-wise, returning for that new short film where he's gonna fight Jet Jaguar and Godzilla. What a time to be alive. I love this design. I love it. The little Varan design, his face is awesome. When he finally gets his wings, it's so grand. That's when you know he's King Ghidorah. I love the way in this film that Godzilla uses his brain to fight. He's pure evil. He's like the Hulk in the Ultimate Avengers animated film. At least, that Hulk wasn't evil in that, but the ruthless aggression I love. When Godzilla and the Hulk are beating everyone, kicking their ass, I'm all for it. I love the way Godzilla fights JSDF in this film. Just incredible. The score! Another Godzilla soundtrack I love. Who would have thought? Needless to say, GMK is another Millennium film that has that early 2000s aesthetic in all the right ways. And during this era, it's just so cool seeing Godzilla and Ultraman reinvent themselves in small ways. I love GMK. End of story. That's my number 3 spot. And for my number 2 spot, I feel like a madman rambling in this video. But my number 2 spot, the original Mothra vs. Godzilla. What can I say? I love this film. The fights are great, they're intense. Godzilla's design is amazing. The fact that this film got referenced back to back is amazing. And what I mean is in -1, we got Godzilla's entrance theme in this film. It plays in -1, you know the motif. And then in the Monarch show, when Godzilla rises out of the sand, you knew that was a callback to this film. As a kid, hearing that early version of Godzilla's theme, not quite the version people know today, but still that Godzilla motif as he rises out of the sand after his fight with King Kong. Amazing. I love this film. I have it ingrained in my head as a kid. As you'll see with my number 1 pick, you'll see why, it makes sense why these films are in my top favorites. I had that box set as a kid, I still have it, 5 films. And Mothra vs. Godzilla, or Godzilla vs. the Thing, was one of them. I adore it. I love Mothra's design, the way she ties in the Godzilla, and having the whole theme of Ishiro Honda, wanting humanity to band together because we're the only ones that can look out for each other. The whole scene I'm talking about where Sacred Spring, that sound, that musical, that theme plays during the garden scene at the Shobijin, and our main cast with Mothra in the background, all the Birth Island natives. Such a great scene, the true centerpiece of the film before all the monster fights happen. I love it. I love it. Of course, this film has a great villain in the form of Kinji Sahara playing Torihata, the businessman. I love it. And then we got Godzilla rampaging through Nagoya for the first time in his reign, when he's like a drunk rambling through the city. It's not so much as a malicious attack as it's just him waking up. I love it. And we got a classic shot of Godzilla walking past the factories. Good stuff. The whole final fight between Godzilla and the Mothra larvae is iconic. Just a flawless film. And that's why Mothra vs. Godzilla 1964 is my second favorite. And I really wanted to put Ghidorah three-headed monster on here, but if I had to pick, I would pick Mothra vs. Godzilla. And this is Godzilla's design in this is perfection. Alright. For my number one favorite Godzilla film of all time, Terror of Mechagodzilla. Yep. I love Terror of Mechagodzilla. I have another copy in that collection, and of course I have that one that came with that 5-piece box that I talked about earlier. Terror of Mechagodzilla, perfection. Made me a Godzilla fan, like that film for all the other ones I watched growing up. Terror of Mechagodzilla in particular always stuck out to me. It's somber, it's kick-ass, and it's tragic. It has all the things I love in a film. Amazing, great cast. Just action is amazing. Mechagodzilla, best Mechagodzilla design for me. I love him. Titanosaurus, a dinosaur, he's great. Aquatic dinosaur, he has dynamic Katsura, even though we don't really get to see them meet directly, you can feel the emotion. It's amazing. Then you get Ichinose's love for Katsura, it's very subtle. Heartbreaking. There's something about this film that is so Ishiro Honda while still being totally unique. You know, it has that classic Showa era bloodiness to it, while being ruthless, and the fight, it feels so just like Godzilla's really against the ropes. And once again, we get to see Godzilla have a Rocky Balboa moment. He gets on his feet, and he fights back against Mechagodzilla and Titanosaurus. I lost my mind when in Singular Point, Jet Jaguar loses his head, and then he has like the Mechagodzilla kind of like second head underneath. I knew what they were calling back, and the fact that I grew up on all of these Godzilla films in retrospect, and all of these new projects, whether it's from America or Japan, reference the Showa era, it makes me feel old. But it makes me feel proud. And suffice to say, I love Terror of Mechagodzilla. This is the perfect Godzilla film for me. And the kind of tie into what I talked about in the beginning, once again, whether it's the American cut or the Japanese cut, I'm gonna watch this film. I love it. And I love just, Terror of Mechagodzilla. It is a happy moment. So there you go for my top 12 Godzilla films. Let me know what your top 12 are in the comments below. And let's get into my top 6 Ultraman films. Ultraman. I got some figures over here, Tiga and Evil Tiga. But let's get into it. At the number 6 spot, the number 6 spot for Ultraman would have to be Ultraman Rising. Yes, it is very recent, but I had a blast. You can feel the emotion. I think the voice actors for this film and the director Shannon Tyndall, once again, Mr. Tyndall, thank you for watching my What to Watch After Ultraman Rising video and retweeting it. You made my day. You still made my day of that. But I think they're all still touring. I know recently in NYC there was like some kind of convention where they had more of Ultraman Rising, or more of like Super as a whole at the event. And I saw a recent Instagram reel where Ultraman Rising's voice actor and the actor for Jugless Juggler were like hanging out and talking. Like, that is insane. But let's talk about the actual film. Animation is beautiful. I love that it has a distinct art style. The fact that we got Ultraman Rising and Transformers 1 this year is a godsend. Like, good stuff. I love the story of Ultraman Rising. It's a bit of another offshoot of the Showa era, while still being its own thing since the human hosts for Ultraman are the original characters. That's cool. I like the new monster designs, from Gigantron to the big mecha fight at the end. It's interesting that the human attack team are villainous in this. I mean, you can understand their motives, but I like it. And of course, Ultraman having to raise a little kaiju in me, it's adorable. I do wish the fights in this film were longer, I gotta say, but, you know, even just looking back, Ultraman Rising, really a solid film. And I like that it stands on its own legs. I hope we get the sequel, but that's my number 6 spot for Ultraman. At the number 5 spot, we have the only Ultraman film I've seen in theaters, but you probably know what it is, Shin Ultraman. I also have a video on it from the past right here. Shin Ultraman. Very, very solid film. It kicks ass too. I like it. It's a bit like super fast paced. It kind of jumbles a bunch of Showa episodes together, but once again, it has a different human host for Ultraman. It was interesting for me. It sets him apart from Hayata. But Shin Ultraman, I really like it. Soundtrack is phenomenal, as pretty much as everything I liked about Shin Godzilla still applies here of Shin Ultraman. But it's still purely Ultraman, and I like that. Shinji Higuchi's direction is amazing. You know, he has a true eye for special effects, and it shows here. This film even got a little mini Shin Ultra fight series, which is really endearing. The Meatless fight is my favorite part of the film. The score, it's bombastic. They have a chorus singing ominous lyrics. You just get a cool Ultraman, you know, Ultraman versus a Saiyan alien that is Meatless, good one-on-one. And this film is such a love letter to the original Ultraman series while still doing its own thing. I don't know if it's going to get a sequel, but this film, while staying on its own two legs, I mean, I think you would appreciate this more if you're already an Ultraman fan. That applies to Shin Kamen Rider as well. I think that's what makes those two Shin films different from Shin Godzilla. With Shin Godzilla, you can go into it, you know, you don't need to see any Godzilla films before to appreciate it. But with Shin Ultraman and with Shin Kamen Rider, I think you need to kind of have some knowledge of the series to enjoy them. That's just me, at least. But Shin Ultraman was truly a work of art, and that's why it's at the number 5 spot. Now, what's at my number 4 spot? That would have to be Ultraman Tiga and Ultraman Dyna, Shining Warriors Beyond. The Ultraman Dyna film that takes place in the middle of the series. I love it. You know, it's kind of hard to rank it's kind of hard to rank the films that tie in directly into the TV shows, but I had to reevaluate all 3 of the TDG films, you know, like, was I going to put Final Odyssey on this list? Was I going to put Battle in Hyperspace on this list? Ultimately, what it came down for me was the Ultraman Dyna film. Really, I love Death Facer. The final fight against Queen Monera is emotional because we get that nice tie-in to Ultraman Tiga, where the kids that helps Tiga fight Gigantosa, the Master of Darkness. Years later, decades earlier, they're a bit more grown up, and they help the next generation find the light, find the heart, to summon Ultraman Tiga, to help Ultraman Dyna. Incredible. It brings me to tears every time. The fights are awesome, it's a great tie-in, there's so much love and heart in this film, and I truly mean that. And that's why I have to put Ultraman Dyna, this film, at the number 4 spot. And the tie-in song, Shining on Love, always listen to that song when you're in the gym. You'll thank me later. At the number 3 spot, I'm gonna have to put Ultraman Cosmos First Contact. I also talked about this a few months ago on the G-Force podcast of my amazing friends. And that was our first time watching it together. I wanted to have an Ultraman film I could experience for the first time with them. And that was Ultraman Cosmos The First Contact. This film is one you can go into, you know, open-headed because you don't need to watch anything before, but it's a great prequel to Ultraman Cosmos. It stands on its own 2 legs, and you get Baltan. 2 badass forms for Baltan, and 2 cool designs for Ultraman Cosmos. This film is more kid-oriented, but that's okay. I still really wouldn't call this a kid's film. For me, it's just a film. Another great film in the Ultraman franchise. And that's why it's at the number 3 spot. Amazing effects, and the story is very subtle on the side with young Musashi and his stepfather is amazing. The whole way it ends with another story where the main GSDF attack team are villainous, and it's only the scientific team that are the good guys. You know, that nice little dichotomy. Good stuff. And the message of this film is really bittersweet with the last remaining Baltons being the next generation, having to fend for themselves. It's deep stuff, man, and I just love Ultraman Cosmos. And once again, the ending theme to this film is phenomenal. So what's at my number 2 spot? Well, to be honest, it's neck and neck with my number 1 spot. But regardless, the number 2 spot would have to be the Superior 8 Ultra Brothers. Oh man, the final fight in Yokohama is a true sight to behold. Now, whether this film is better than Mebius and the 6 Ultra Brothers, that's up to you. But for me, I had to pick the Superior 8 Ultra Brothers, because you get the 4 Showa Bros, and you get Tiga, Dana, Gaia, and you get Mebius. Incredible. So you get these 8 new Ultra Brothers against the forces of darkness who are a bit mysterious. They just summon Alien Hipporito and a bunch of notable picks for classic foes returning. You know, I like that. And I love this film. It's cool how it is Elseworlds, and it knows it, but it plays it, you know, heart on its sleeve. It winks at the audience in the best ways. It's a great multiverse film while being a reality in a way, and it shows its earnest admiration for its fans, the people, the craftsmanship that went into this legacy, the 40 years of Ultraman. It knows it, and it loves its own respective legacy as well. As in, you can tell that the Ultras all have, I mean, except for Mebius, all the Ultras have a cyan color timer. So it's not quite blue, but it's not quite green. But you know who they are. You get Ultraman, Ultra 7, Jack, Ace, Tiga, Dinah, Gaia, and Mebius all joining forces to take on this insurmountable threat of darkness and saving the people of Yokohama. There's this despair in the film that gets removed because the Ultras are together and they're fighting alongside each other. And once again, the tie-in song for this film over the end credits is amazing. But what I love about this film is that no matter the years that go by, we get to see the Ultramen, their human host, hanging out together. They all like live on the same block. They have their own shops. And some of them tie into their characters, like Ultraman A, Seiji Akudo, having his own little, you know, like little bakery shop. And it's just stuff like that, or all of them hanging out at, you know, their restaurants. It's endearing. You even get Gamu being a scientist. You get a lot of fun stuff. And what I love, that you get the human host interacting with each other, but you also get their wives, who are, for the most part, the main, you know, women, the main female actresses from their respective TV shows. You get a bunch of cameos, like Agul's cameo. Amazing. So many side characters. This is a film, a true fan service in all the right ways. And I love Superior 8 Ultra Brothers for that reason. And I do get a tear in my eye in the finale when they're all flying to the land of light. You know, it's very positive, it's just very imaginative. You have to go with it, but I mean that in all the best ways possible. The reason it brings a tear to my eye is because it's like, you get all these original actors, you know, and their families, you know, in terms of the show, and they're all flying back to the land of light as that amazing ending theme plays. And for me, that's just so emotional, you know, especially after the passing of Jiro Dan, and, you know, seeing just Hideki go, pretty much going off into the sunset that is the land of light. You know, in retrospect of this film, alongside all of the Ultra Brothers, it's just so emotional, man. And for me, it's just a way to look into the future. That the Ultras, they're always gonna be there for the next generations to be inspired by. And that's what I think the Superior 8 Ultra Brothers is about. It's about this Elseworlds that everyone, you know, living happily together, while showing that these guys are Ultraman. I love it. With that being said, what is my number 1 spot that was neck to neck with the Superior 8 Ultra Brothers? Well, my number 1 spot for Ultraman when it comes to ranking the films, this was a tough one, but it would have to be Ultraman the Next. Yes, I love the Next. I have a whole video on it in my channel. It's called Ultraman the Next and the Promise, or the Promise of Ultraman the Next. What can I say? This film is like the Gamera the Brave of the Ultraman franchise. It's more stripped down, low-key, has that sunset vibe that, you know, you get in Spider-Man 2 and Gamera the Brave. It's a bit of a dreamy film. It has a family drama at the core of it. And I adore this film. It's a pseudo-remake of the first Ultraman film, at least spiritually, as having an Ultraman you really don't know like what he's doing, because he's, you know, he's very alien. And he's fighting a new Bimilar in the form of Beast the One. I talk about it more in my video about the whole idea of the film's themes, but I love this film. You know, it's like if Ultraman Cosmos: The First Contact was a pseudo-remake of Ultraman Episode 2, then this film is Ultraman Episode 1. There's some light, like body horror on both sides, the protagonist and the antagonist, but I just love the film. Like, sure, it's more like militaristic because there's no like sci-fi elements on the human side, not yet at least, and we get that in Nexus. But as it stands with the Next, I love the idea of Maki and the One, like Maki being a direct parallel to the One. You get the best of humanity of Maki and Ultraman, and you get the worst of humanity of the One. And I think that shows what Ultraman's about. Inspiration, the heart. So he's doing it for his family, but he's also doing it for Mother Earth as he fights this horrific monster. It's simple, Ultraman versus one monster, and I love it. And that's why I have to put Ultraman the Next at the #1 spot. And once again, the ending theme by the Takamatsumoto group, the Never Goodbye theme, phenomenal. You know, I became more of an Ultraman fan during 2019, and like almost 5 years later, looking back, you know, going through a pandemic, going through all these years of college, going through personal struggles, you know, these trying times, I'm glad Ultraman's always been there. And looking back, even when you know, Ultraman's that kind of character that he's simple but hard to understand in a way, like Superman, you know? Simple in concept, but in application, hard to live up to. But that's okay. You know, Ultraman, the idea of Ultra, and then the man, the human host and this alien being, and realizing that we all may just be alien to each other as we're going through life. Really, we may be. No matter the technology, no matter the shortcuts, we're all alien to each other. Whether it's other countries, or technology, or just individuals, you know, we all have our own walls around us. For me, Ultraman's about knowing that there's always going to be that distance between people. But in those small moments that we feel as that connectedness, that we are on the same page, that's the power of the Land of Light and Ultraman. Even if it's just a brief moments throughout our long lives, that little bit of understanding is what Ultraman's all about. And I think the Next encapsulates that. The basic idea of Ultraman. We may not know who he is, and the quote-unquote adults of the world may fear him, but kids understand Ultraman. And there's nothing wrong with that. If we can find that kid inside of us, I think that's what Ultraman's all about. That adrenaline rush of having a few minutes to fight the monster that's trying to burn down the city. That's Ultraman. He's the kind of guy, no matter the incarnation, no matter the host, Ultraman is the power of light that can punch these horrific beings. That's Ultraman, while still finding some sort of understanding in it. So, I rambled a lot, and maybe I said some decent things in this video, but thank you for watching. I just really wanted to have a video, you know, this time of the year. I really like to just go back to Godzilla and Ultraman, and I hope you guys do too. I know I talk about other things on this channel, but I really wanted to kind of do this for my Godzilla and Ultraman and Tokusatsu fanbase. A bigger video, But thank you guys for watching. Let me know in the comments if you agree or disagree with my list. I don't mind. Let me know what your top Ultraman and Godzilla films are, what your favorite versions, the characters are, your favorite soundtracks, anything. Let me know. Please, all I ask is for you to subscribe and share my videos, that's all. But I've been Tiger Drop Films. Thank you guys for watching, and here's a toast to you, because you earned it. Take care, and I'll see you in the next one.